Well, let's speak now to Professor Malcolm Chalmers, who is the Deputy Director General of the Royal United Services Institute, an independent think tank on international defence and security. Thank you for speaking to us this morning. How surprising is this? We did know that it was maybe in the offing, but still it's quite a big move, isn't it, by President Trump?
This is a very important development. It's not entirely a surprise. American complaints about this Russian violation have been around for the last 4 years under the Obama administration as well as the Trump administration. And there were growing indications at the NATO summit in July that the Americans were moving towards this. I think it's a disappointment that there haven't been more substantial discussions with the Russians about how to avoid it. But we're now at this position. And I think one of the important parts of background to all this is that the Russians have been very skeptical about this treaty for some time. President Putin saw the INF Treaty as a legacy of Gorbachev's weakness, as an unequal treaty from a Russian point of view. And of course, this is a US-Russia treaty, but it places no constraints on the arsenals of China or India or other countries who do have missiles in this category.
So President Trump is citing Russia's violation of the agreement as part of his, reason for doing this. Has he got a point here?
Yes, I think Russia has violated this treaty with the deployment of its new ground-launched cruise missile, which does have a range within the band range at which this treaty has. And the Americans have raised this concern for a number of years now and had no satisfactory answers. So the treaty was always on borrowed time. However, there is a real concern that the next stage is that the United States will move towards not renewing the Strategic Arms Treaty, the New START Treaty, which is due to come up for renewal in 2021. President Putin did ask President Trump to agree to renew that treaty. He hasn't done so. So there is a real worry, I think, that within the next couple of years we could be without any legal constraints on nuclear arsenals for the first time since the 1970s. So it does really feel like we're beginning to roll back some of the achievements that made the end of the Cold War possible.
I mean, that really is incredible if that were to happen, isn't it? The idea that we could be entering into an arms race after all these years where we thought that that time had gone, really. And just explain, people will look at China, won't they, in all of this as well? This isn't just about the US and Russia, is it? President Trump has concerns about China too.
And Russia does as well. And I think one of the reasons Russia has not fought hard to maintain this treaty is because it sees China, which is growing in military strength and spends a lot more on defense than Russia does. It sees India, it sees potentially Iran if Iran would become a nuclear power, but Russia, which has a particular emphasis on ballistic and cruise missiles in its defense strategy for non-nuclear as well as nuclear purposes, being constrained in this way. If you look at the Syrian war, Russia used its cruise missiles extensively in that war, using conventional munitions. Actually, the missile they used there was quite similar to the one which we're now talking about, but it was launched from a ship, so it was legal in the treaty. But Russia as a land power, having all its options open in terms of land-based missiles is really critical to it. So I think the Russians will be glad that the Americans are going to take the political heat for pulling out of this treaty first. But I suspect the Russians are not going to try very hard to maintain it.
OK, Professor Malcolm Chalmers, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. He's Deputy Director General of the Royal United Services Institute.